Greetings, this is Ty Brown, and welcome to the One Question Leadership Podcast, where we highlight executive leadership in college athletics. I'm joined by Brandon Fisher and Colby Wilson, both former interns at the NCAA in the postgraduate internship program. Now, Brandon, tell me again where you are?
I'm the assistant director, student athlete development at University of North Texas.
North Texas. Yep. Colby?
Same role, assistant director, student athlete development at University of Pittsburgh.
Year in, how long has it been now?
Yeah, we actually just both hit a year. So
a year?
Yeah.
Did you guys work before doing the internship at the NCAA?
So I did a year at Florida as a grad assistant.
Okay.
Student athlete development there. So I did a year before that.
Yeah, I had some internships, sport management degree, worked at UConn for a semester, and then spent the summer at USA Track and Field. But NCAA was first full-time.
Yeah. Both former athletes?
Yep.
Sports?
I played lacrosse at Ohio State. Good Bucks.
Track and Field.
Yeah.
At Springfield College.
Yeah. Okay. Excellent. Good. So I remember meeting you guys. I was doing some work with Amar Pottinger. Used to be at NCAA, right?
That's LP.
And he introduced you. You guys actually career in sports forum, wasn't it?
Yeah.
It was right before the internship started. Yeah, right before the internship started. That was interesting. And you guys got that internship. You're in there. You're doing things at a high level, right? You get a job. And I talked to you probably 8 months ago. Said I wanted to follow up. You guys might even approach me about following up. Like, hey, we're going to be on your podcast talking about some go-getter, right? Being a young professional. And I said, well, let's give you a year in first so you at least have a year to know what to expect in, at the roles you're in. Give me at least one or two things you learned as an intern that you are directly applying now in your current role, Brandon.
I mean, I think for me, just the standard at which we did things at the NCAA really set the tone of what, work looked like for us. Lamar and Mark and that whole team just did a really good job of enforcing what, the details were and how important they were. So if we were setting up name tags or running programs, like all of that stuff mattered. I think that's something that's carried directly over. How you do one thing is how you do everything. So that was a big one for me.
Yeah. How about you?
Hey, I would say just the intentionality. Everyone knew exactly why they were doing what they did. From top to us being interns at the bottom, we never felt like we were any lower than DD or Lamar, who was in charge. It was just every program was intentional, every move we made was intentional. So I just think seeing how calculated and how much went into the decisions and the programming we put on, bringing that to campus and being intentional for what the student athletes want, knowing that we might have an idea of what we think is great, but the student athletes might say that's not something that really interests us. So being intentional to figure out what our audience wants, and with our staff knowing everyone should know why they're doing what they're doing, no matter what their role is in that program.
Is there an aspect, think about what you just said, is there an aspect of they may not want it, but that it's probably necessary? I think about that as an intern. You may not know the reason for it, but it's probably necessary. Tell me about that.
Absolutely. Yeah, I think what makes Lamar and that whole team so great is they told us what we needed to hear, not what we wanted to hear. Obviously, being a young professional, a lot of it's about growing and learning. Sometimes we might think we have an idea of where we want to go and how we're going to get there, but they're the ones who've walked it and talked it. So I think similar for us now, being close to the student athletes we work with, knowing sometimes that, yes, they might see us as more of like a friend than an administrator, but we got to tell them what they need to hear rather than what they want to hear. We help them get to their ultimate goal.
Yeah. I mean, I think one of the hardest parts for me about transitioning into the workforce is balancing that, that competition and hunger with also trust in the people that have already, known the road ahead. So, like, while I might see what's down the street, they can see what's down the street and around the corner.
Yeah.
So, like, trusting my mentors and communicating my goals with them, I think has been great for me in terms of, they've seen college athletics for a while now. I've only seen it for a year or two. So, like, being able to rely on them and trust with them has been awesome.
Yeah, I think that's excellent. A year in, are there aspects of the job that you want to know more about? Do you find yourself curious in what you're doing?
Yeah, I can start. I think something that's really interested me now, seeing things from a campus lens, something that was so integral to our role at the NCAA was professional development.
Mm-hmm.
Obviously, that's not something that is in your job description on campus. So I think I've taken an interest in seeing how talent, and especially young professionals, can be developed.
Mm-hmm.
I think it's something Mark told us all the time. When we leave, the first boss you have is going to be super important to how you show up in the workplace.
Okay.
Being on campus for the first time. So I think I've taken an interest in, hopefully we'll continue to explore how I can make my own talent development plan, but also help other hungry, go-getter young professionals like us figure out how they can get where they want to be.
Yeah. What about you, B, in terms of what you want to learn?
Yeah, I think there's obviously a ton. I think college athletics is obviously shifting at a rapid pace right now. I think for me personally, with my career goals, I would love to learn more about supervising or some of the budget aspects of the business. I think that's where obviously I don't have a ton of experience right now, but I think developing under Jessie Gardner, she's been great for me. And even picking her brain intentionally on like our one-on-ones, she's been awesome about just being able to be open and vulnerable with me about her leadership styles and everything too. So I think there's certainly different aspects that I want to
Yeah, supervision.
Yep.
And then for you, it's like pouring into people, figuring out when. And
I feel like that first 1 to 3 years is super important to keeping, especially in today's college athletics landscape, keeping people in the industry. I want to similarly, yes, supervise, but more importantly, I want to develop young talent to then do that for other people one day.
Yeah, very important. No, very important. You have the version of Jessie Gardner that has gotten to know herself a little better. The old version of Jessie Gardner was like, I need things this way, and they need to be this way. Correct. And if they're not, it's a problem. Yeah. I ain't gonna micromanage you. I'm just gonna be frustrated that you're gonna do it this way. Right. But now she's like, maybe the product is more important than the process, right? Mm-hmm. Or maybe the process is more important than the product. You know what I mean? She has decide which one, but she's not as she used to be on herself so hard about other people, right? So tell me about the Jessie Gardner you have now.
Yeah, I mean, Jessie has been honestly so instrumental in my growth, and I think you're right. I've heard stories of Jessie being, on it about a lot of stuff, and she's even opened up about that. So I think one of my mentors told me there's multiple ways to get to 9. Yeah, 6 and 3, 4 and 4, and she's really leaning into that. So I think she's given me and Tori a lot of autonomy over the program now, and how she will always say like, you could do it that way, but I still think this is the best way.
That's hilarious.
But this still might be the best way for me. But I mean, as she's overseeing a lot more now, she's giving us a lot more trust.
Yeah. And that probably has helped her to get the responsibilities, right? I'll be so concerned about somebody's process and how they're doing things. When are you worried about the rest of the 50,000 foot you got to climb, right?
Yeah, she says she's oftentimes forced to.
Yeah.
Like she obviously wishes she was in the weeds more with the student athletes and stuff, but her roles, shifted a lot.
Yeah.
A lot for her.
Yeah, she's done great things. Yeah, that's great. She's a champion. You've had a couple supervisors.
Yeah.
Tell me about that process, right? Coming into a job, and now the leader changes, and you got to still keep doing your job at a high level.
Yeah. It's
new expectations, all the things.
Yeah, it's definitely been something different to navigate, especially coming from the tree we came from, like the consistency of Lamar and Mark every day. It's been different, but it's been a really good learning experience for me to be managed in a lot of different ways, but also just be a consistent piece on our team, but also for the student athletes. Yeah. Something Mark used to always say, you can't control the waves, but you can learn how to surf. Mm-hmm. I feel like that's kind of how I've been navigating this year. Obviously, the landscape's unpredictable. People could leave for any reason, or we could restructure for any reason. So just knowing why I want to do the work is going to stay consistent, and how I show up can stay consistent. So just trying to be, learn how to surf, being a consistent force for our student athletes and our staff. But definitely, like I tell Brandon all the time, like if I could go back a year from now, I'd pick Pitt every time. Yeah. I've grown a lot, I've learned a lot, and I've been able to step up in a lot of ways that I don't think I would have had the chance at some other institutions.
Yeah. One thing I learned when I was coming up was a supervisor, if they can explain to you why your job is important, a lot of times you'll do your job a lot better, right? Tell me about that aspect of it in terms of understanding that you are maybe a small picture, but the big picture is made up of a whole lot of small pictures, and you fit in that. Tell me about, are you guys coming to understand that at your respective institutions?
Yeah, I think, at its best, and I look back at some of the teams I've been on, when you have that top to bottom buy-in, like that's It makes for the most fun work environment. I mean, in my playing days, the most fun playing environment. I will say the one thing that I have really resonated about UNT from the jump is our mission is clearly articulated, and that's top down. It's building champions and preparing leaders. Like, we have that all on the walls. We have that in the facilities and everything like that. And having Jessie be in the rooms, of senior staff and exec, she's constantly sharing stuff and messages to us, and me and Tori to feel like we're playing a huge role in it. So I think being able to connect our day-to-day work with that mission every day,
the bigger mission,
is awesome. I mean, obviously in student athlete development, it's a pretty clear line.
Yeah, 100%.
That's what we do. But in ticketing or in events, like, how are they day-to-day dotting that line is important.
Yeah, I think something we've talked about, but like conversation I had a few weeks back, every team has 3 people. There's leaders, there's managers, and there's doers. And I think that it's important to do all of those at certain times. Like, obviously, in our current roles, we don't supervise anyone, but there's times where we might be the best leader for a project or a program we're running. But also knowing sometimes we have our core commitment areas, our different places that we're responsible for, but someone might be the one who needs to be the doer. It doesn't need to be us. So I think just knowing, like, similar to how Brandon said it, but coming from the sports background, like, we all got to play a role in the team at some point. So I think that's kind of how I've understood the why. Like, I know at my core, I'm a leader, but my current role right now, I might be needing to manage the dynamics on the team through transitions, or I might need to be a doer and just get things done as we move around responsibilities. So I think just knowing every day it looks different, but staying grounded in those values and why we want to do what we do, we'll keep it going.
Yeah, what's impressive about you too is that it seems like you guys kind of understand where you are in the industry, understand what you want to learn so that you can get to where you want to be in the industry. I'll tell you what I didn't have when I was younger. I didn't have a vision for anything in the future, right? I just showed up and did the work. I remember sitting down talking to my boss one time. This was an old football coach, influential in the coaching profession. Just like, I don't have a vision. I don't know, 5 years from now, I don't know. He was like, it comes with time, don't worry about it, Ty, you know what I mean? And so it took a while for me to get some experience underneath my belt, to be around people, to see what leadership actually was, for me to actually have a vision on what I saw myself doing in the future. Some of it was public speaking, some of it was doing this, interviewing people and asking questions. I wonder about you in terms of where you see yourself in the future. Like, what do you see? I mean, you haven't seen the whole industry, but you've seen a lot of it, right? So tell me about where you see yourself going.
I
think we're both kind of similar. I'll speak for myself and Colby, will too as well. But I think athletic administration has always been the goal. To merge my passion for sport and my passion for leading people in higher education and collegiate athletics. Like, it's a model that's done so much for me, and I've met some of my best friends and family in this this industry thus far. I think one of the quotes that Derek Howard actually at Louisville shared with me is, begin with the end in mind. And I think that keeps me grounded pretty much every day. And even on the hard days, or I think I always try to tie in what I'm doing now to, hopefully where I'll be in the future. So day-to-day interactions, good, bad, negative, positive, I try to, circle that back of, okay, how can this interaction or this project or this task help me out with, hopefully where I'll be in the future.
So being in the college athletics industry is, for you, that's where we're going.
Yeah, I mean, I'm head down right now.
That's where we're going, baby. That's where we're doing.
Yeah, that's where I'm at.
Okay, how about you?
He'd be humble right now. I'll say it for him.
Yeah.
Brandon gonna be an AD one day. He'll be an athletic director.
Okay.
That's gonna be down the road for him.
Yeah,
it's gonna happen.
On the fly.
Yeah, I think similarly, we talk about it all the time, but we're just proud products of the life classroom that is college athletics. So for me, when I think about long-term vision, I don't necessarily have a title in mind.
Yeah.
I feel like it's something people say a lot, but I really mean it. Like, I'm driven by the impact.
Okay.
And how people feel feel how I treat them. If I were to put a goal on it, I really you never want to try to be another person, but who Lamar has been for me, I really want to do that for other people.
Yeah.
I think some people being a connector is cool, but being a relationship builder is a lot better. And I think seeing how he is really he's a general manager of the industry. He's helping people get from one institution to another.
Yeah.
He has colleagues looking to hire. He helps them get the right people, and I feel like that's a skill I possess, and something I got to see him do a lot. So I think when I talk about that talent development, I think a lot of it is not just the talent development, but developing people and helping them get to the right place at the right time. So I'd love to be. I'll sit on his senior staff.
Yeah, right.
I don't know that I'm going to be an
Go
athletic
get the
director.
job, but I'm gonna make sure everybody's developed
Right.
right organization.
Right.
Yeah.
I would love. I think a role that we're going to see starting to pop up more is a chief people officer.
Okay.
So I'd love to have that type of role where, you oversee some of the leadership stuff, but you're also kind of managing the talent and culture of the whole.
Yeah. That organizational behavior is the thing you can study, the certificate you can get, the master's degree you can get, the PhD you can get, the times, just like what Lamar did, right?
Absolutely.
And now he's doing it, right, with the Pistons, right? The whole organizational development, organizational behavior involves people. Sometimes it involves a processes to make sure the people are in place to be successful at what it is you want them to do.
Absolutely.
I think that's very interesting. Okay, before we wrap up here, a couple more questions. I need a couple, 2 or 3 points.
Okay.
Even though the lens is limited, you have done that internship at the NCAA, which exposed you to a lot of things, people, processes, right? So if you're talking to somebody that's probably dealing with athlete identity syndrome and not knowing who they are and separating that from what they do, but they know they need to get a job, right? They know they need to work somewhere. What kind of advice would you give them? Start right here, Coach.
Yeah, that's a great question. I think the first thing in any situation you need to do is figure out who you are. Really taking a look in the mirror and continuing to pull back those layers. Something Mark and activity he had us do is talking about having the questions is always better than having answers.
Yep.
So if you're asking yourself, why do I want to go get a job? The first answer is probably going to be to support myself, have an income. Why do you want to have an income? Peel back that layer. Ask a third question. So I'm someone who's big on vulnerability in figuring out who you are. So being able to really tap into your personal story. I think being able to give a 30 to 60 second elevator pitch, it should be easy, but it's not.
Right.
And I think that goes back to knowing your why, but peeling that why back 4 or 5 layers. So I think it's simple, but just being yourself, figuring out what that is if you don't know how to get there. Asking the questions is going to give you the answer.
Yeah, it seems like you've done that in terms of understanding that you want to influence people, right? Because you said that in multiple ways throughout the conversation, right? Yeah. Tell me about that. Yeah. What kind of advice would you give to somebody? Interim.
I mean, I think similarly, right? It's being able to know yourself more, and you give that gift away to others. So, that's a great activity in terms of peeling your layers back. I would also, again, begin with the end in mind. That's something that served me so well. What type of lifestyle do you want? Do you want to travel? Do you want to have a 9 to 5? You want to have different hours of work? Like, what does that look like? And then kind of peeling back from there. Another thing I've been big on now recently too is self-auditing. Like, what do you like? What are your hobbies? Starting with some of those things, and then how do we weave that into what looks like a career? And
let me ask you a little bit about that, B.
Yeah.
Begin with the end in mind. You mentioned the end being working in college athletics. He mentioned being an athletic director for you, but
I had to pop it for him.
Yeah.
It's happening.
But you're in college athletics now. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So now what's the end?
Yeah, I mean, it's definitely AD administration. That's always been kind of the summit, the goal.
Just having more responsibilities, more influence within the industry that you're.
Yeah. So
I say this because some of us don't know what the end is, right? Okay. You come out, you might be young coming out of college, and I have no idea what the end is. Yeah. I don't know what it is. Yeah. I may have an idea of who I am, right? But don't necessarily know what the end is. So then how do you advise somebody like that? I guess it's the self-work you're talking about, right? The peeling away the layers.
Yeah, I mean, I think, again, it goes back to questions and trying to figure out, who you are. And I say this now. I could very well be 5 years down the road and be in a whole nother industry. And I'm not naive to think that, but I think that's kind of the part of the process is like, for me, it's also of like I like to have clarity and structure.
Yeah, 100%.
So I'm gonna be a four-legged dog and chase this thing. And if we don't get there, or another path takes me another way, I'm gonna chase another thing. I just have to be, motivated to go get something. So I think that's something that internally helps me out. So that's where I'm at.
No, I think it's great. It's what I lack, right? I probably still lack it, actually, right? Half of my brain is a football coach, which is organized. The other half is like artist, right? So color outside the lines all the time. football coach trying to like, hey man, color in the line. But the artist always wins, right? It's just the creativity, the curiosity. It's like sitting down without questions. It's like creating and editing at the same time, right? And so I'm always trying to figure out what the end is, right? Think I have the end in mind. It may have been this thing, this making people think with asking questions. This might have been the goal throughout the last 10, 15 years, but who knows, right?
Yeah.
Influencing people can happen outside of college athletics. Is this just happens to be the industry where the universe led you, or does it matter where you do it?
Yeah, I think for me, sport has kind of always been the vehicle in my life. I mean, I remember being 5 years old knowing Boston Red Sox players' batting averages. But I think, like I said, I'm really just following a path that's already written for me. But my dad's a basketball coach.
Mm-hmm.
My mom's a teacher. So I always kind of knew I would do something around educating people. And sports just kind of always been the avenue. I didn't see myself in a coaching position, but I also didn't see myself in the classroom. So I found myself somewhere in between now. But I think it's just kind of like, to me, it's just kind of like destiny. Like, I feel like it called me. Like, I didn't necessarily call it. Springfield College became a home to me when I was an 18-year-old kid who didn't really exactly know who I was, but I kind of always knew I was different, and I knew I would get to being that person I was. I just needed the right people around me to really empower me to do so. So that happened through sport for me, and I feel like it's just kind of like what I'm put on earth to do is give that back to other people.
Excellent. I'm going to ask one more question. I want you guys to tell me one tip in terms of managing up, in terms of, you might have a couple different supervisors in 1 year, right? You might be working for somebody who's well-known in the industry,
right,
that expects excellence, but is also on her own path to journey. So give me one tip on managing up, and then we'll wrap.
Yeah, I think for me, what's really helped me out, and I think is part of being a good employee, is knowing what your supervisor wants.
Okay.
Knowing the mission of the organization, and again, bubbling everything back up to that. So Jessie, for example, extremely detailed. Knowing that, I'm not going to give her a document that's not detailed. Like, that wouldn't be being a good employee. So I think just constantly trying to shrink that gap. Right now, I'm working how, she wants me to work, and I think that's kind of part of being a good employee to me.
Yeah, that's excellent, right?
Absolutely. I think piggybacking off that, before I give one, self-awareness is super key in every situation. So like B saying, he knows Jesse's super detail-oriented, providing that. I think also for us, knowing our strengths and weaknesses and being able to bring that to our supervisor, that goes a long way. But I would just say advocating for yourself. Sometimes it's hard when you're reporting to your SWA or you're reporting to someone higher up, and you have to have some uncomfortable conversations. But I think sometimes you gotta speak your loudest even when your voice shakes. Because we're this new young generation, like we're here, and we're not necessarily. I think our parents and the people who came before us worked one job for 20, 30 years, whether it was good or bad. And I think we're in a day and age now where you might advocate for yourself, and after 18 months somewhere, if the things you asked for didn't happen, you're going to leave. And sometimes that place might regret it after, but you at least gave them every opportunity to keep you and tell them what you were looking for. So I think for me, like I said, I'm on my 4th supervisor in a year. So just knowing that I've done some good work and being able to advocate for it has helped me feel like I'm still in a good position amidst a lot of different changes and roles shifting around.
Yeah, I think that's excellent. So advocate for yourself, and then understand how your supervisor operates so that you can help them to be successful, which will also help you to be successful.
No doubt.
Gentlemen, this has been an excellent conversation. I really appreciate you joining us on the One Question Leadership Podcast.
Yes, we appreciate you having us. It's been a great conversation.
No, this is awesome. This is something that's been, I've watched so many of your podcasts. To be on it now, like, that's definitely a dream, man. So
I appreciate that. Yes, sir.
More to come.
That was Brandon Fisher. He is at UNT, and Colby Wilson, who's currently at Pitt. And of course, I am Ty Brown with One Question. And keep in mind, the role of a leader is to create and maintain an environment that people want to be a part of. And as always, be better tomorrow than you are today. This episode of the One Question Leadership Podcast is produced by Spades Media Group, solving problems using creative leadership.